Welcome to group coaching, everybody. It's fun
Hello.
to have fun to have so many folks on. I do have at least two questions that were emailed to me, so I'm going to make sure that I cover those as well. I don't always start with those, but I often start with those just so that I knock them out of the way. Oh, there's the video that you guys want to see. You know what I'll do? I'll start with Ariella today. Well, first let me do my whole spiel here. Welcome to group coaching. we're on, we're recording, so that you can always watch later. That's one of the beautiful things about group coaching. We've got so many people on today. It's going to be a great time. Just some housekeeping before we get started. Uh, Everybody in my house is sick, so you can hear me. It just sounds in my voice. I actually feel nothing so far. Thank goodness. But I was up all night with different children, different times, different places, different rooms. We were talking about how if we had like a top-down camera of all of our rooms, because all of our bedrooms are on the same floor, they're just next to each other. How you would see me and my wife, it would be like a Monty Hall thing, or whatever it's called, like dun, 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 and we would all be going to different rooms all throughout the night. You could have like a time lapse. When our kids are sick, that is what it is like. Just some general housekeeping. As you see, we already have Amber and Ariella who have already raised their hands. They've clicked the raise hand icon, and Lisa as well. That's great. That lets me know how many people we have in the queue waiting, and allows me to answer questions kind of in flexing with that time, so I know how much time I can give to each answer. But I also have some emailed questions, or one or two emailed questions here. So I'm going to pull those up, but I'm going to start with one of the live folks here. And then while I'm pulling up those questions, then the questions will be second. Hey, Ariella, what is up? Tell me about what's going on.
Hi. So I feel like it's same old, same old. My 3-year old in preschool, I got texted by a mom yesterday who has twins, and
Mhm.
he's been with them since like 18 months, and they're mommy and me. He was with them last year. Um, and it's not them, it's everyone, but like essentially she feels like he's bullying them, but what he's been doing is the same thing to like my mom at home, and
Mm,
the dog is just like kind of kicking, not actually kicking, but like kind of kicking towards, or like going like not spitting, but like just doing things that are testing the boundaries.
yes.
um and but with other kids, and she's concerned for the kids, and like we keep on talking to him and repeat all the time, like, we don't do that, we don't put our foot on animals, we don't put our feet on people.
Right.
Put your feet on the floor.
Yep.
um
Perfect. Perfect.
Gentle hands,
Yep.
like, this is
Yep.
how you touch. You have to ask if you want to touch somebody.
Yep.
Like my husband this morning, he was kept on saying, can I, like, ramming his head into like him and my husband, and my husband was like, I don't want to be touched right now, I don't want to be touched right now, left the kitchen
Right.
and was like, I'll come back in a little
Right.
bit. But what else can we do?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the short answer is you're doing all of the things. The question is, we we're always redirecting to the positive, right? And so you're already doing this a little bit where we don't put our feet towards the dog. Important thing to say in life, right? But also, can we kind of retrain ourselves to, instead of saying don't do that, do this instead, right? Keep our feet on the floor, which you're doing, right? So that's step one, is just
we're
to
also
yeah, go ahead.
we're also praising, we're working really hard to praise him when he's not, when he's doing things well and like behaving, and
Sure.
pointing that out
Yeah, I
as
would I
well.
would say I would say the thing to praise is actually when you can see him stop in the moment and then and change, right? So when just like generally behaving in alignment with what we'd like to see, I don't know that I'm praising that, but if I see frustration, excuse me, if I see frustration and then like a crossing of the hands and a stomping of the foot, instead of frustration becoming going this way or whatever, then I'm going, Oh, I see that you were really frustrated and you chose to do this instead. That's great. Thank you. Like, thank you for not hitting me. And so that's the stuff that I'm praising. I'm just this, we're nitpicking here, right? Like I'm not trying to say that you're doing it the wrong way, but we're going for the best possible. So you're already doing that, which is good. The second piece is you're already redirecting to the positive, which is good. Uh, I think that the key here is probably just the brutal consistency of this. And what's happening is we're having we're doing the same thing with different groups of people, and those people probably aren't responding exactly the same way. And that's kids have an amazing ability, kind of like bilingual kids have an amazing ability to just kind of speak whatever language when they're with one group and then speak another language when they're with the other group, and they don't think to do that, they just kind of naturally do that. Kids do that with parents too and caregivers. They know, okay, well, this is how I'm going to speak to this person, or these are the types of play that this person does. My kids don't roughhouse with my wife. Like they just don't, because my wife doesn't do that. My kids roughhouse with me. They just know that I do that. Nobody told them that. But over time they've just seen like, oh, this is the type of play that we do with dad, and this is not the type of play that we do with mom. So they do get that and they do pick that up. But it's just that kind of brutal consistency. And then the other thing that I would say is I would I would try, if you know, as best you can, to kind of gather the people, the caretakers, the stakeholders who are struggling with this with your son, and I would say, okay, so here's going to be our unified approach. And you're not going to get 100% unity in that, right? Like, because you might be super committed to this, but maybe other people are going to be less committed to the approach. Um, but even just to say this is how we're going to do this, and every time he does this, this is what we're going to redirect to. Kids thrive in consistent boundaries. I think that we all can kind of say that. What does that actually mean? It means kind of by the time somebody once said, when you're leading a company, by the time that you are super sick of saying something, the company, the employees of the company are just finally hearing it for the first time. So if you say the same thing, 100 times, and you're like, I can't believe I'm just talking about this again. I can't believe I'm going over this again. The lowest level employees, in this case, if we have a business idea of a family, which I don't love when people write a book like how to run your family like a business. It's like, yeah, don't run your family like a business. But if we're taking that analogy in this case, the lowest level employees are your kids, and those are the ones who are looking around and going, "Oh, I'm just hearing this for the first time." And so that's the frustration for us as parents. Like, oh my God, I've said this 15 times. And it's like, yeah, but somehow they just didn't hear that. And so the other thing I would be doing is a lot of these interventions feel like they're very much so, and this is partially just the age, right? But a lot of the interventions feel like they're all in the moment. And you're the one outside of the moment thing that you're doing is you're praising the positive. Hey, look at these behaviors that you're doing that are, flourishing behaviors. We'll call them pro-social behaviors. The thing to do is to have the conversations. Jimmy, I got you. I'll make sure that I come back to you. Don't worry. The thing to do is to kind of praise in the moment in its own way, to kind of to redirect and think about how we can talk about these things outside of the context of when they're happening. So like you pet the dog, and then you say, do you see how much the dog likes it when I'm gentle? Right? So like now we're reinforcing that. And one thing that I think is really, really helpful with 3 year olds, right, is developing mantras and then just repeating them over and over and over. So give you an example of one that I got with my 3 year old recently. I I'm having trouble getting them like out of the house. Specifically, I'm fine being late for stuff, but I'm not going to be late to pick up my older kid from school, right? I'm not going to be late to pick up his brothers from school. I'm not going to be late to go get my wife when she needs us to pick her up somewhere. I'm not going to make somebody else wait. I'm actually more likely to do that, but certainly I'm not leaving my kid at school just because you don't want to put on your shoes right now, and I'm not going to, like we're not going to have this debate, right? And so I was finding myself kind of having to for lack of a better term, hold that boundary physically of just kind of pick the kid up and say, I'm so sorry. I know that you don't want to go right now. You don't have to wear your shoes. I'm just going to put you in the car now. Right? Which is not what I want to do. Sometimes it's what we have to do. And interestingly, in the forward of my book, that's what Tina writes about. She talks about, parents think that they shouldn't do this. Sometimes you got to pick your kid up and put him in the car. But it's not what we want to do. And so what I started doing is I said, don't stop, don't be late. And I would just say, don't stop, don't be late. Don't stop, don't be late. And I'm not yelling. I'm just kind of like, it's like a chant. We're at a sports arena and we're like, this is the chant, defense. I'm like, don't stop, don't be late. Don't stop, don't be late. And then I started leaving the second one off. I would go, don't stop, and away from my kids. And I'd say, come on, guys, you gotta say, don't be late. And say, don't be late. I was like, okay, don't stop, don't be late. Don't stop, don't be late. And they're like in this. And then I would say, don't. And they would say, stop, don't be late. And they would just repeat this over and over and over. And actually, politicians do this really well. Very famously, Barack Obama, in one of his like probably his greatest speech ever, does this fired up, ready to go thing. And like he only became president because he was so good at speaking to people. Like that was his whole thing. And that is what that's what you got to do. So I started doing this don't stop, don't be late thing. Now, if he's not getting out of the door, I'm like, oh, we're gonna be late. Don't stop. And all of a sudden, it's like shoes on, I'm out the door. Don't be late. And it took like times when we weren't late saying that. And it took being at the grocery store and going, ooh, I want to stop and look at this, but I can't right now. Oh, why, Dad? Don't stop. Don't be late. We got to pick up Matt. It took me kind of embodying that. And whatever that thing is, I would pick one thing, right? Don't hit the dog, right? Like gentle with the dog. Like make it the mantra. Gentle with the dog. Dog's not around. Gentle with the dog, right? It doesn't matter. We just reinforce that. And then we can draw on that because that's a neural pathway that's built. And then we can draw on that when we need it in the moment. And some kids just need that. Like some kids, like you're struggling with a 3-year-old. My guess is we're not going to have this conversation when he's 5, hopefully. But we probably wouldn't be having this conversation over and over if he was 4. We might have to have it once or twice, but like then he would get. The problem is at 3, we're still in that kind of malleable phase, and sometimes we just got to commit to like the mantra or whatever. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. He was sick last week and you turned me on to Daniel Tiger and they do a really good job of that. So
Absolutely.
he's already singing, "We are kind to each other."
Right, exactly. And the songs and Fred Rogers did this, and singing has this magical effect, as do mantras to some extent, but singing has this magical effect where it can cut through the noise of dysregulation because literally the feelings brain is the part of the brain that is necessary for singing. So like this is why songs can somebody was playing the backing track to Fix You under Jon Stewart talking about his dead dog, and I was like about to cry. I went to this documentary last week about gun violence, and the music was like if it had been not no music, I would have been fine. But I'm like weeping in front of 200 people. I mean, all of us were, so it was fine. We were sharing in our mutual weeping, but yeah, music has a powerful tool. So Daniel Tiger is good for that as well. Uh, I gotta keep moving on. This is good. This is good today. And I do apologize. I gotta kind of really hop off right at the time. Carolina said, does this work with 5 and 6 year olds too? Absolutely. And in fact, it works better with 5 and 6 year olds in many ways because those conversations after the fact can be much more potent. And what I mean by that is that you can do a lot of work with the 5 or 6 year old in just conversations that we're doing with mantras with a 3-year-old because we don't have the nuanced conversation of theory of mind. What is it like to feel left behind when you're late? I want to ask a question. I'm going to jump to Amber. You're next after this one, but I want to jump to a question from Brittany that she emailed. She said, "What if your triggers run so deep that you feel re-triggered when you do trigger mapping? You can't think of a non-reactive response to a situation." So she said, I'm currently working on why I have such a big trigger response with a trusted person in my life, and I gain multiple ideas to navigate through, but it's not enough to become the not reactive parent. I think the answer to this first would be inside the membership, we have this resource of how to break the yelling cycle. And ultimately, as I've been saying to a lot of you, that resource is not, it's about yelling. Absolutely, it's about yelling. But it's more about how what yelling comes from is our own inability to regulate our big emotions in the moment. And then those come out as yelling when they bubble over. And this is why it's not just like dads who yell or moms who yelled. It's everybody who grew up with yelling who yells. And the reason for, or most people who grew up with yelling yell. And the reason for that is because uh, by the time, like we aren't good at recognizing our emotions and identifying those emotions and seeing how those emotions are affecting us. And so by the time that we, and the metaphor that I use in the workshop is you're like skiing. By the time that you get over that edge and you're starting to hurtle downhill, you can't slow down anymore. You have to slow down from the beginning if you're an inexperienced skier. Maybe someday you become like a pro level skier where you can be flying down a mountain at 40, 50 miles an hour and stop on a dime. But obviously, physics makes that much harder, and you have to be really, really balanced, and you have to have a lot of experience. Most of us, if we don't want to go flying down the mountain at 60 miles an hour and kill ourselves or somebody else, we have to go slow from the beginning. We can't wait until we pick up a bunch of speed and then stop and then slow down. We have to learn how to go slow from the beginning. And most of the people who yell, our problem is we are yelling before we even realize that we're triggered. Like our reaction is happening simultaneously with realizing, "Ooh, I'm a little mad right now." And when we learn to identify those feelings as they build, we're better off. And so I would say if you're really struggling with triggers and you're really struggling with being reactive, the first thing that I'm going to do if I'm working with you one on one or whatever is I'm going to go, "Hey, I want you to learn to identify the feelings that come before the reactiveness." Now, sometimes, in cases of trauma or whatever, it can feel almost instantaneous. You can go to 0 to 60. And in those cases, there's work that we have to do with therapists or whomever where we can identify retelling that story from our past. Why can something take us 0 to 60? But when people say, "I just go from 0 to 60," more often than I have this traumatic thing in my past that causes me to actually go 0 to 60. More often it's, I have been so trained to hide my emotions. I have been so trained to not feel my emotions. My emotions were threatening to my parents. They didn't know how to regulate their own emotions. They didn't want me to have emotions. I've been so conditioned to bottle up my feelings that I'm not actually going 0 to 60. I'm very I'm moving through the stages of melting down, but I'm moving through the first 9 out of 10 steps like without any knowledge that I'm doing that. I'm doing that entirely subconsciously. And I'm just repressing and I'm repressing and repressing until I can't repress anymore and then boom, I'm gone. So I'm like, okay, yes, we can work on tools like I put out a video this week on stop, which is STOP. It's an acronym. S stands for just stop whatever you're doing, just literally freeze. T is take a breath. I know telling a person who's melting down to take a breath is not great, but when you tell yourself to take a breath, it does work. So stop, you take a breath. O, you observe what's going on in your body. So this is where we take stock of, oh, didn't realize my teeth have been clenched for 30 seconds right now. Ooh, didn't realize that I'm clenching my fists. Ooh, didn't realize that that feeling in this pit of my stomach, etc. Right? Like that didn't you have to take that, you have to observe, you have to take stock of what's going on. STO is observe, and then P is proceed with caution or intention, right? So at that point you go, okay, what do I want to accomplish out of this interaction, and now I'm going to proceed. Notice you can't do P, proceed with intention, until you, one, stop what you're doing, two, take a breath, and three, observe what's going on in your body, because otherwise your emotions are running you. You're not processing through your emotions. Carolina said, if you've experienced trauma, you might not be vibrating at 0. Absolutely. In fact, we know this to be true. We know that people who have PTSD, what's happening in their brains is that the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the hormones like that are calming down, that are the antidote to epinephrine, which is adrenaline, and cortisol, which is the stress hormone. We have an ability in our body to create the antidote to those hormones, where they counteract those hormones. They totally wipe them out. So two ways to get rid of adrenaline and cortisol in your body is wait for them to subside. If nothing happens, they'll subside on their own unless you re-trigger yourself or start screaming. Then they'll keep going. But you can wait for them to subside, or you can engage your parasympathetic nervous system. What we know about people who have PTSD is that part of PTSD is that the valve to control the flow of cortisol and adrenaline essentially gets stuck open. So you're always having a trickle of cortisol and adrenaline, which means that your antidote hormones are never going to be able to turn it off entirely because you can't close that valve. And until you work with a trusted therapist, you do EMDR or talk therapy, or they're making lots of breakthroughs with new therapies these days. And I'm not a doctor, and I'm not a licensed trauma therapist, and so I don't get to know much about these. But even just in reading the studies that are related to people using certain hallucinogenics in very controlled environments with therapists, these things allow people to process through trauma and shut that door. So yeah, you're absolutely right, Carolina. But it all starts with understanding how you're climbing that mountain. And I think that, Brittany, wherever you are, that is the place where I would be focusing. Because if you're always just trying to pull yourself back when you're already over the edge, it's important to learn how to do that. But that is only half of the equation. Not getting to the edge in the first place is another half of the equation. And actually, if you're only pulling yourself back, you're not building the neural pathways to not get there. So people can become very, very good at pulling themselves back after they're already over the edge, but they'll still melt down. They'll still be triggered. They'll still go off. In my experience, the only way that you're ever going to get to the place where you're not going off and pulling yourself back is to learn to do the work in the lead up and build a new neural pathway where I call it climbing the mountain. Instead of climbing the mountain straight up and flying off the edge and screaming at your kids, or flying off the edge and being reactive, whatever, you learn a different pathway up the mountain that takes longer. And then you slowly you're much slower to anger. In Hebrew, we say your nose gets longer, because when a person's really mad, their nose gets hot and red. That's like the old world, right? And so your nose gets longer so that you can take a longer time, slow to anger. That's what it means. Okay, Amber, talk to me. What's going on?
Um, okay, kind of maybe a little question, but so we had a meltdown last night. Teddy's 4. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Dad and I did great, held the boundary,
Love it.
soothed all the things. I now hear your voice in the back of my head in times of strife, being like,
I'm
take it
there.
easy.
I'm
You're
always with
you're
you.
always there. It's so helpful. Um, so I realize I'm like I will talk to Soothe, especially since she doesn't like want you to touch her in these
Uh-huh.
moments.
Uh-huh.
So
Yep.
I talk to Soothe and I know, she's in her like downstairs brain, she's in the emotional part of it.
Mm-hmm.
But she also has these little it's like the logical brain is like flickering on. Like she'll still kind of like answer those questions or still try and get it out what she wants.
Yep.
And I'm, saying like, here are the options. Why don't we
Yep.
do this? Blah,
Yep.
blah, blah.
Yep.
And my partner suggest, and it's still not calming her down, obviously, 'cause she's in the throes. My
Yep.
partner's like, why don't you just stop talking because she can't absorb it?
Sure.
So I guess, which, very true, and she wants what she wants. Um, so I guess my question is like, where's that line between like talk soothing, which may like, is it helping? Like, where's that line between just giving her the time and not saying a thing, but also maybe like reminding what the options could be? You know what I
I'm
mean?
gonna
Like,
be
I just,
I'm gonna be annoying. Amber,
great.
where's the line?
I see.
I think the challenge is not that you don't know where the line is. The challenge is, can we do the thing that's uncomfortable? I am not a conflict avoidant person. I talk through all my stuff. My wife is conflict avoidant, dismissive attachment type stuff, right? Which means that when we're both triggered, she wants me to shut the hell up, and I really want to talk about it. And what we know is that Taken to an extreme, people who can't be quiet and must process through everything, that's what we call insecure ambivalent attachment or insecure anxious attachment. What we know is people who have no ability to talk through their problems, even when they know they should and they know they need to, and they're maybe not even triggered. That is insecure, avoidant attachment. What we are far less willing to say in the psychological community is that it is okay, natural, and normal to have a preference for how you engage that does not have to rise to the level of insecure attachment. We know that 50% of people are still securely attached, even though inside of those 50% of people, a percentage of people, often introverts, though not exclusively, will prefer to kind of sit with their stuff and calm down on their own. And the people who are not introverts, extroverts, whatever, like they want to talk it through often, not always, but often, right? And if those are about preference and don't rise to problem, right? There's things that are preferences and problems. If they're just preferences, then the challenge for us on the outside as the parents is to learn how to identify those preferences, which are going to be different for our kids, and then go, can I be what they need and not what I think they need? And that is probably one of the hardest parts of parenting. Lots of people say very quippy one-liners about this that I find to be pretty dismissive. Things like, you're trading your comfort for their growth. They're trying to grow and you're not giving them space to because you want to be the hero. I don't think that's what Amber's doing. Certainly no, that's not what I'm doing. I'm not trying to white knight my way into pulling them out of a tantrum. But I've had to learn with my 5-year-old that he wants to go to his room and be by himself. And that's not maladaptive. That's not him having some sort of I'm not taking him to a child psychologist to figure out why he has this deep problem and he's avoidant. That's because for him, that feels safe. Me talking feels like I'm compounding the problem. And so the challenge with your daughter is you have to be able to straddle that line. And I don't know where it is. You have to be able to straddle the line where you're offering. And sometimes you go, this is not fruitful. The most amazing. So my original title for Punishment Free Parenting, when it was going to be a little bit of a different book, was called Improvisational Parenting. And the idea was, really, I'm going to teach you the fundamentals of parenting down here, right? I'm going to teach you the boundaries and the 5-step method and all that. And then ultimately, I'm going to tell you to throw it away. Because once you feel massively confident, whether that's having my voice, which is really just your voice, just so you know, it's your voice in the back of your head. You've just chosen to give it my vocal cords, right? You've just chosen to give it that language, but it's your voice. It's actually Amber's mind doing that work. You're not remembering what I said. You're coming up with and giving yourself advice in those moments. In those moments, the improvisation is saying, I have the confidence to be outside of my comfort zone in how I navigate this. Because worst comes to worst, nothing's going to faze me. And that's ultimately what I want for all of you, but especially those of you in the going through the course right now, is at the end to have the confidence to go, oh, I can improvise and I can go, oh, you want to be left alone right now? That makes me uncomfortable. I don't love that. I wish I could be there for you, but I'm going to trust you. And if being alone, if you were actually wrong and being alone makes you way more triggered, no matter how triggered you get, I'm going to be able to handle it. I think what a lot of people do is we want to pull our kids back again from that edge, right? They're going over the edge. We want to pull them back from that edge before they get there. And what we learn over time is, oh, eventually I'm going to have to let them pull themselves back from the edge, which means that frequently they're going to topple over it when they're trying. And many parents lack the confidence to let their kid topple over that because they go, once they're gone, and I'm going to lose all control. And it's really about them. It's about like, I'm afraid of what will happen if they get too triggered.
Yeah.
And what I would say is, I think you're a great parent. I think that you're going to be able to handle it if they get too triggered. I don't think that
Cool.
that's going to phase you. So I just reflect that back to you. I don't know where the line is. I know that again, this is preference, not problem at this point. If it's my child has no ability to have conversations with me, even days later about dysfunctional things, then we can go, why do they feel that way? But I don't think that's what this is. I think she's just like, I'm not hearing you right now. And you got to be the person to go, oh, you know what? You're not hearing me right now, and that's okay. I can deal with that.
Yeah.
Feel me?
Cool. Feel
Cool.
ya. Thank you.
Cool. Lisa, talk to me, and then I'm going to do another one from the email, but we got time. What's up, Lisa?
Sorry, I was just trying to figure out how to unmute my
You're
thing.
unmuted.
Okay, so I used to think my husband and I were on the same page with all of our parenting things. Having said that, I have always been the one who kind of drives researching and learning that
Hmm.
kind of journey of parenting, just because the dynamics of our lifestyle demands.
Yep.
And so Martin was brought up in an immigrant family and came here with parents who were trying to escape a bad situation. And he was really young and they didn't speak the language. And so they just definitely didn't have the parenting tools to parent the way that, I'm trying to journey through now.
Yep.
My husband's always been really good about kind of supporting. Clayton, just a minute, please. Really good about supporting kind of my perspectives and has always kind of been on the same page as me. And lately, I think with just life's stressors and triggers,
Yep.
that hasn't been as easy. And so, just a minute, my love. Here's a pillow. Here, take this. There's one there too. Anyway, sorry. So what's happened now is I feel like we've gotten to a point where, he's not navigating issues with the children at the end of the day as well as he wants to. And
Hmm.
I find myself sometimes trying to call him out on things and I'm clearly doing it wrong. And so what's happening is things that I think need to be addressed so the kids don't get the wrong message and
Yes.
it's coming across to him as I'm undermining him. And
Yep.
so we're getting into battles in front of our children
Yep.
and I don't know how to do this differently, but at the same time, I'll give you some examples if I can think of one.
Yeah.
Last week, my daughter, my oldest, because I don't know if you know, I've got four kids, if you
Yep.
remember,
Yeah. Yeah.
9, 7, 5, and 3.
Yep.
And so my 9-year-old was having a hard time with something and putting up a fight with whatever it was. And then I tried to correct Martin on something, and then he got upset and
Yep.
was like, I give up and walked away. And then he comes back
Yep.
afterwards and says to her, like, Blake, your actions made mommy and daddy fight. And I was like, no, no, no. And
Yeah.
then that made him walk away again. And there was another
Yep.
time where my son was having a hard time, my number two, he's 7 and he has ADHD, generalized anxiety disorder, and a few other struggles. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah. I
he has
remember.
emotional regula issues and he
Yeah.
was having a hard time regulating and he is feeling very shameful right now. We're struggling with his kind of internal dialogue and we haven't been handling his struggles as well as possible. So I was trying to sit with him through a hard time that was going on 45 minutes and he isn't able to kind of downregulate and was like pushing us away. And so finally Martin was like, I'm out of here. I can't do this anymore. I'm like, Martin, you
Yeah.
can't walk away from him. I'm like, we need to tell him that it's okay for him to feel this. I'm like, this is why he's messed up, which I should have never said that. And then Martin's like, don't say he's messed up in front of him. And then now my son saw us fighting and he was like, are you going to break up? And we are by no means breaking up. I
Sure.
have an
Sure. Sure. Sure.
amazing, amazing marriage. And I
Yep.
would never ever think that's even a possibility. But we have now come to this impasse where I don't know how to deal with things that are said in the moment that I think are not right without
Right.
creating a conflict.
Yes. So yeah. So it's heavy. It's heavy stuff, right? There's no
My
there's no
questions are
like
never easy.
no, but that's okay. I wouldn't want them to be, right? Uh, it's heavy stuff. My guess is this is a place where how deep has the change gone, right? So like clearly all of us, not clearly, many of us don't have any problems until we have kids with our partners. We don't have any problems with, oh, I used to be this way, but I'm not this way anymore now that I'm a grown up. And we chalk it up to brain development or this or that or the other. The truth is, we just don't have the stress to bring out the worst of us. And You know what's interesting is that in media, especially about 15 years ago, we had this massive influx of zombie movies. You guys all remember that? Where everything was like zombies for a while. It was like zombie movies, Walking Dead, TV show. And ultimately, I was in a class called, it was a philosophy class called this Surviving the Zombie Apocalypse in college. Like, yeah, this is what happens when you go to liberal arts college, right? Private college. You have classes on the zombie apocalypse. And the professor had never seen like any zombie related content, but he was really into, he was a philosopher. He was really interested in this idea that really what that conversation about zombies was all about was it was playing with the idea of what would happen when if all of us were reduced to our most stressed out. So all of these are always like, oh yeah, like society functions fine until, people don't have enough food or they're going to be attacked by a monster. And then all of a sudden, all of us show our true colors and we become the change of, we no longer live in under kings and stuff like that. Like that all changes in a hurry when we're under threat. And I think that that's an interesting idea because, and I know this feels like a diversion, but it feels like it's an interesting idea because really it plays with the idea of like, how deep does the change actually go? And my guess is for Martin right now, the change just, you're getting to the place where he doesn't have practice holding as much stress around parenting as is necessary. And the change has just not gone that deep yet. And it's not because it's not a bad thing. That's not like a knock on him. We're not good at things until we practice them. No one, right? None of us were good parents until we had practice at it. And so now we're learning a new skill, which is how do we parent under stress and how do we parent in at the same time and in the same place as our partner. And I'll tell you, everybody on this call with zero shame, me and my partner, who have the best marriage of most people that I know, definitely the type that, everybody is like, oh, like the cute couple that loves each other still, right? After 10 years.
I would say
We don't,
that's how people describe my husband and I too, to be
great.
honest.
We don't parent together. We don't do it like as much as we can. If we do, guess what? She's much worse mom. She makes me a much worse dad because we're vulnerable with each other. We're willing to give our own stuff to each other. And we're kind of putting on a face for the kids a lot of times. Much easier to put on a face when the person who you're vulnerable with is not watching, right? And so first thing I would say is when Martin walks away, look at that in the most generous light, which is yes, it's not ideal. Also, the alternative may be some really hurtful, harmful things. It's
Yeah.
and I know that you said you're not splitting up, and I don't want you to, and I don't want you to take this as me saying that you should. But when people ask, like, do I need to get divorced from my partner? My answer is always the same, which is divorce always hurts kids. And sometimes the pain of that divorce is less than the pain of living in the constant dysfunction in perpetuity. Right? So it's not that the answer is yes, it's going to make all your problems go away. It's no, it's going to create new problems, and maybe that's better than creating the old one. So when he walks away, is that going to create problems? Absolutely. But maybe it creates less problems than staying in that moment. And we have to view that in the most generous light. The second thing is, as you know with your kids, Lisa, and as we've been practicing now for years together, like when there's the bad thing, when the kid comes home, I remember one situation with you where it's like not being included at school, right? Kid comes home in that moment feeling all the feelings. That's the moment that you're going to talk through this through? No. We're going to wait. We're going to wait until we're regulated, until we've eaten, till we're playing, and then we're going to address this and go, what's going on? Same thing is true with partnerships. Do you need to address when we're saying, look, you just made mommy and daddy fight? Absolutely. But you also don't have to, it's in a way, you don't have to address that in the moment. The child does not have to hear that in the moment that you corrected.
Okay.
In fact, that just feels like evidence, right? Now you're correcting that. It's like, no, now we're even fighting over how we talk in front of you. And kids, remember, kids will always internalize that. They will always internalize that. And that's not your fault. And guess what? All of us do this to our kids. It's not, we're all imperfect. So it's not the end of the world if you do. But I think the real practice here is to go, clearly this is happening when he's overstressed. And the stuff that you've said is far outside of your norm too, right, Lisa? Like you never say the stuff that you, but you're even offering that in this environment now to say, yeah, I said this and I really shouldn't have, and I know better than that. Well, that's the exact same thing that's going on for him.
Yeah.
He knows better, but that change has not gotten that deep yet. And I think that all of us, that is true. Like the change has only gotten as deep as we've had to let it get. Like all of us have only learned how to grieve the hardest loss that we've ever had. And then you have the next hardest loss and you learn how to grieve deeper. All of us have only ever learned how to parent in the most dysfunctional situation that we're in. We've never learned how to parent in a more dysfunctional situation. And until that more dysfunctional situation arises, we won't learn. And so nobody's doing anything wrong. I think that you guys are just meeting each other in places where you're dysfunctional, he's dysregulated, you're both dysregulated, and the change just has not gone that deep yet. And it's going to take practice, and it's not going to happen through one, punishing each other or punishing yourself, or two, in the moment of dysregulation and dysfunction. Everything that we talk about at Whole Parent says that that's not how we're going to raise our kids, right? The same thing is true for ourselves. It's also not going to fix it in that moment. Now, shame is a more powerful motivator for adults when they self-impose it and they say, I really shouldn't do that and I should stop doing that. And sometimes that's okay. There's a level of shame in which it's okay to feel like garbage when you treat your kid like garbage and to go, I don't want to do that again. I don't want to be that person. That's good. But almost never when it's coming from another person does it prove to be effective. So I think that you approach it with curiosity and you go like, hey, so, earlier we had this interaction with our son and you said this thing, like, can you just tell me like what was going on? You seem really upset. And let him come to the decision. Yeah, it's actually not who I want to be. That's effective. But if you come in there and you go, look, I'm here to police how you parent, you're going to be met with immediate opposition.
Okay.
You feel what I'm saying?
Okay. So
everything that you're saying, I agree with. But how we get there is actually more important, probably in this case, because like we'll even get into like a power struggle between mom and dad where it's like, oh, you tell me I can't do that. Watch me do it.
yeah, and I find the reaction happens like when I do try and jump in to stop something, and then the kids, it's almost like they get empowered in their, choices of action, and then they start to kind of say, "Oh yeah, see, mommy said no," and then they're
Yep.
pushing his buttons even further. So you're right, it's definitely backfiring on me. So I guess I'll have to try to remember it and just let it slide. I just wasn't sure if that would be more damaging
It's
to the
not letting it
kids, but
slide. It's not letting it slide. In the same way that when your kid does something like hits when they're being dysfunctional, you're not letting it slide to not come down on them like a ton of bricks in that moment. You're saying, I'm choosing to teach you when you can learn.
right.
That's
Yes.
totally
So,
different, right? Than saying, I'm going to let this go. I would not say just let it go. Now, are there certain things that you're going to have to let go? You don't police everything, right? Like there's going to be stuff where
fair.
it's just different, right? There are
Yeah.
things you're going to have to let go. And the good news in that is just because what kids need, let's talk about need, ideal, right? Versus real. What kids need is one securely attached caregiver who they can always go to. What kids benefit from more is two securely attached caregivers, one who is not in the home. What kids benefit even more than that is multiple attached caregivers, which include both of their parents. So actually, the only thing that kids need is one.
Right. Okay.
And so you don't have to feel like, well, if he says this, it's gonna completely defeat all of the stuff that I've done. No, it's not true.
Okay.
And thank God for all of the people on this call who are either not in the relationship with mom or dad anymore, who are in dysfunctional relationships, who are in abusive relationships, who are who are single parents, that they don't need more than one. Thank God for them.
Yeah.
He's I don't want that to all go on you. He's got to do his work and he's got to come alongside, right? Like we're not going to let him off the hook here. But like if Martin is not always perfect, it doesn't mean that Lisa automatically nothing matters anymore.
Okay. I like the idea of waiting, maybe just
Just
waiting,
wait.
and hopefully
Just
I
wait
can
it out.
remember to have that conversation because he's quite receptive if I can catch him in the right time.
That's right. All of us are
Yeah.
when we're
Yeah.
when we're presented with it in the right way. And what you're feeling is you're feeling protective of your kids in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if telling yourself this is not going to hurt them is what you need to not feel protective in that moment to an extreme where it causes you to lash out, then do that. But you can always address it later and it's almost always better. All right. I'm
Awesome. Thanks,
Oh
guys.
my goodness. I almost just ended meeting for all instead of went to the next person. I have one here from Amanda who says it's a 3-year-old and an 8-month-old. And you know what, Amanda, you know what I'm going to do? This is a very long answer. Amanda, I am going to write you out because I'm reading this now for the second time and remembering that I meant to email this back to you. So, Amanda, if you're listening to this, I'll email this to you before I post this. But I'm not getting to your question because I'm going to send it right back to you, and I want to get to the people who are here. And that's a pretty invested question. I believe Jimmy was actually next, although it doesn't look like it's Jimmy on the call. But I'm gonna jump you up here, and then we still got 13 minutes, so we can get through. I'm just gonna have to. We're moving through. We're moving through. What's up? Tell me about your question. Mm, can't hear you. Can't hear you. Gotta unmute. There you go.
Okay.
There you go.
It's Carly. Hi.
Carly. Yes.
Yeah,
Oh yeah. That
yeah.
is you. Hey
I'm
Carly.
signing in on my husband's by accident.
That's
Um,
great.
so now you guys know his name. Anyway, the question is about my husband. Hey, Bob, can you give me a minute, please? Thank you. Um, kind of piggybacking off of Lisa.
Perfect.
We have a very similar struggle, but
Hmm.
with our teen, which we
Right.
talked about before. She He believes that we need to be more of a like control,
Strict.
yeah, like a control mindset with our
Yep.
daughter.
Yep.
And whereas I'm just his mom was very lenient growing up. Like she
Hmm.
wasn't really, she worked a lot. She had 4 kids,
Right.
single parent. And he says he wishes that she would have been more controlling and like, no, you can't do that. But I'm trying to explain to him that it's very different because we are active in our teen's life. And so that makes a difference where
Yeah.
she has that safe space to land.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just gonna, usually I would like walk you through it more like emotional regulation, but I'm just gonna drop it on you. Your husband does not wish that his mom was more controlling. Your husband wishes that his mom was more available, that she was
And
more present.
that's what I try to tell him too. And he just doesn't.
He will have to learn that from himself.
Okay.
He's not going to learn that from us telling him. He's
Okay.
going to learn that through his own experience. And so I wish that I want to do better for my kids than what was done for me is a beautiful sentiment. And I love that. I but it's not about control. It's about availability.
Okay.
And I think that reflecting over and over, like, yeah, I agree. We do need to be more present. I agree. We do need to have boundaries where your mom didn't. I agree. We do need to do this. None of those things are conceding control. Because here's the truth. If you could, like, the thing about control is it's a beautiful idea that is functionally impossible with a teenager.
Okay.
Um, we think that we are being controlling. We aren't. We are hiding ourselves from the dysfunction. So when we clamp down and we control, all the behaviors continue. Sometimes the behaviors are lessened because they can't get away as much to do it. Uh-oh. I don't know where I just went, but I'm here still. I don't know what happened to my
You're back.
maybe it just died or something. Which is weird because it's plugged in. But we're actually not controlling anything. We are just driving the behaviors underground.
Mhm.
And in the example of, let's say, alcohol, right? Drinking with a teenager, we can say, we're going to lock you in your room all day, every day. And we can stop them from drinking every night. But when they go out, when they eventually sneak out, when they eventually get away from us, and maybe we are so effective at our control that we control them until they're 18, right? Maybe we're so good at it. You married a prison warden. He knows exactly how to lock down, right? Like, we're so effective that we're controlling through at the age of 18. What happens on that day? Like,
Mhm.
at some point, our control is going to stop. And at that moment, it was all an illusion.
Yeah.
And so there is no real control. There are boundaries, and boundaries have to be mutually agreed upon. Even if we're saying this is a non-negotiable to me, to our kid, the boundary has to be mutually agreed upon. And so it's really shifting away from the mindset and saying, what is the fear underneath this that feels like you have to be in control? And the answer may be, I got canceled for something I said yesterday and I had to delete a video. The answer may be by a bunch of people who were like, we need to control our teenage daughters. Like, that was the take. I said, you shouldn't control your teenage daughter. It's functionally, number one, it upholds patriarchy. There's lots of problems with this, like psychosocially, with body image issues and all this stuff. And then beyond that, you're actually not going to be able to control them anyway, so it doesn't matter. And all of these people were like, oh yeah, I am.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, why does that feel so scary to you? And they're like, because look at the world out there. And you know what? In 58 seconds, I never said the hard thing, which is, yeah, you're afraid for your daughter, and I get that.
Can
I
I
get it.
add in something?
Yeah,
So we had a discussion about like the alcohol thing. She
right.
does, as far as we know, she doesn't like do that yet. But we had the discussion and he says, "Well, would you really be comfortable with her sneaking out and going to a party and getting drunk?" And I'm like, "Well, no, I wouldn't be comfortable with it, but I
No,
want to know that she has a safe place to land if she needs."
that's right. No, and it's both, right, Carly? Like, we need to be able to hold those boundaries, which I know are a little bit of a challenge for you, right? Like, of holding the boundary, right? We have to be able to hold the boundary and say, hey, as a person who loves you and cares about you, this is why I think this is unfruitful. On the other side, for Jimmy, it has to be this experience of going, I don't care whether you're comfortable or not of her sneaking out and going to the party. We don't have a say in whether she does.
Yeah.
We don't have control over that. And so how are we going to navigate the situation while having a realistic perspective on how much control we actually have?
So could you give me an idea of what that could look like?
Conversations with your daughter around things that you don't want to talk to her about. The
Okay.
things that are the most taboo are the things that you go, hey, I'm here for all the weird stuff.
Okay.
I'm here for all the bad stuff. And if you want to drink and want to know what that feels like, and you're going to go out and do that somewhere, like, for the love of God, I want to know about it,
Okay.
because I love you so much, and I also know what it was to be a teenager. I know what it was to do what you did. I know what it was, and I am not saying, and now I'm smarter than that. No, I know what it was, and I get it, and I'm not going to let you put yourself in an unsafe situation and think that there's nobody here, and you're never going to be in trouble. You're never going to be in trouble for this. It's not about that. If you're violating boundaries, we're going to take corrective action together. You're going to be involved in that. You're going to be involved in the discipline process of taking that corrective action. We're not going to come down like a ton of bricks or hurt you or scare you or whatever, like shame you. We're not going to do that. But we're going to take corrective action if that's necessary for your own good, and you're going to be involved in that process. You're going to have input. You're going to have say. You're going to help us do that because it's your life, not our life.
Yeah.
So you're going to have input into that, and it's never going to look like we're ashamed of you, you're bad, we hate you, you're embarrassing us.
Yeah.
It's never going to look like that. Because
So,
if it looks like that, then they're going to just do it independent of us.
okay. So violating boundaries would look like,
Look
um,
like it looks like having a conversation and going, okay, so
or,
here's the boundary. What do you think should happen if you violate this?
okay.
And you know what? Kids are way more willing to follow a boundary that they had say in implementing. Even if it's, I don't think this should be a boundary, but I understand why you think it should be, and fine, you can take away my phone for a week. Again, that feels punitive, and people look at me and they go, I thought you're punishment-free parenting guy. It's like, no. If a kid wants to institute their own like accountability structures, what we know from change researchers, people who research how people change, how they quit smoking, how they do work out finally, the change researchers tell us over and over that this is the case. I have time for one more. I don't have time for both of you. Carolina or Elena, would either of you be willing to email me your question and I can make you a personal video and respond to it? Elena, that's cool with you? Okay, I'm going to make you a personal video and respond to your question. Carolina, tell me what's going on for the last 5 minutes here.
So I was just going to say I have already messaged you on Instagram about this, so I'm also willing to wait. But that was I was originally going to ask a different question. I would like to piggyback on the last question.
Sure.
So my whole question was about, I'm a kindergarten teacher and all of the things happening in that world.
Yep.
So my biggest thing is I have been doing this punishment-free, reward-free, walking the walk, working the steps.
Yep.
Have completely changed my relationship with my biological children and my stepchildren. I have 6 children total.
Yeah.
And doing the walk in the classroom. I teach kindergarten. There has definitely been a huge shift in the amount of neurodivergent students in our general education classrooms. In California, we are one adult with 24 children, 24 4 and 5-year-olds. And as much as I've educated myself on the neuroscience of behaviors, read your books a few times, been trained in some programs, I struggle with the fact that I agree with some of the critics out there.
Yes.
When they say school should be safe for everybody.
Yes.
And I would just love to hear, does reward-free, punishment-free work? Yes, but it takes time. It takes time to build that connection. Here's my
2-minute answer.
Okay.
And this is exactly what I'd say to admin or whatever. I would say it doesn't work in school environments in isolation because you don't have the time or the ability to build the neural pathways that are necessary to regulate out. And what we're seeing, I am very convinced, in the kids who are acting just all over the place in schools, is that their parents are not doing any of this work at home. There did not exist before devices like iPads, tablets that could functionally shut a child's brain off when they're dysfunctional. Those devices now work. We see from the rise of kids' YouTube. I'm even thinking about creating content over there that's emotional regulation content because I know that it's a place where kids are going, whether or not I like that. We know from kids' YouTube and things like this and the skyrocketing numbers, this is what they're doing. You're never going to win that battle. That said, I think the one thing that we can do that's so much better is we can get kids up and moving every 40 minutes. Up and moving every 40 minutes, which feels as a kindergarten teacher like, oh my God, it takes me 35 minutes to get them to calm down. And now I'm going to get them up and moving again. Yeah, it's going to take a week of implementation, 2 weeks, 3 weeks of implementation. But I would have a timer where I'm going at 40 minutes or even 35 minutes, I'm getting them up and moving. And that
we move about every 10 to 15 minutes. We're doing movement.
So you're doing that already, but I would say then it has to be even more. It has to be even more play-based. And this is a Band-Aid on a bullet hole. This is not going to fix everything. But you can only point the chaos at this point. And then we need to go and talk about legislation, and we need to talk about parent advocacy, and we need to talk about all these other things. We need to talk about how to fix this systemically. But from your perspective, basically the reward-free, punishment-free, yes, it does work. It works a lot better if the parents are on board. And it's almost impossible if they're having
And
zero
I
reps.
teach parenting workshops, so I do get a majority of these parents on board. It's a slow process.
But it's a
It
slow
takes years
process.
to build that the new neural pathways
It
for
does.
them.
And they have to be willing to embrace dysfunction at home. They have to know that they have a way out of the tablet or whatever and not take it. And that we live in a society where we do not do things we do not want to do. We do not do things that we do not want to do. Shema, you can email me, john@wholeparentacademy.com. I have to jump off. Carolina, we can continue to have this conversation. This is a really good one. I have to jump off because it is time for me to go put my little girl down for a nap. But I want to tell each and every one of you that you are worthy of love, dignity, belonging, and respect. Respect, love, dignity, and belonging, and so are your kids. And so treat them as such. I'll be posting this where it needs to be posted. Thank you all for being on group coaching. Those who I told to email me, I'll make you guys videos after the fact. We'll see you all again soon. Take care, everybody.